Welcome to Retraction. I'm Antoine.
I'm Jamie, and we are reversing course through discourse.
It is episode 95, and we are recently off of the beleaguered daylight savings catastrophe extravaganza. My goodness, how much do I hate daylight savings time? How much do I hate the fact that we switch into daylight savings times? Which
How
makes
much,
me hate
Antoine?
It. How much do you hate it? I hate it a lot. I hate it a lot, Jamie. And I complain about it I complain about it biannually, which you pointed out. Not just once a year. I complain about it twice a year. Yes. I don't understand it. It's jarring. It makes things worse. You know, you go from one period where it's like, okay, it's not so dark out, to all of a sudden it is just pitch black when you wake up and then when you're leaving work. It is just pitch black all the time. It wouldn't be so bad if we just allowed it to naturally progress. But the fact that you put this arbitrary cap somewhere in the middle of a month at the end of a year, whatever, it's spring, it's jarring. And it just catapults people into a situation that they're not ready for. You didn't ease into this. You just switched one night. One day you're one time zone, next year in another. It's horrible. I'm done with it. I will vote.
That's an interesting point, because everything is digital now. So you could just chip away a minute a day to build up to that hour.
Sure, why not? Why not make it more complicated? Or you know what we could do? We could just
not do it at all.
Yeah,
we could.
How easy is that? We could just stop it.
Well, clearly there's a desire to keep it, so I was trying to compromise.
No, there isn't. The desire is the fact that we have no ability to enact legislation that actually benefits people. Yeah, that's it.
What happened to Marco Rubio? What happened to your?
Yeah, I know, little Rubio.
To your man across the aisle.
He's doing the worst part about it. He's trying to keep daylight savings. It's no one, even no economist, no psychologist, no person with a degree that
it dark.
It's insane. You don't want to keep daylight savings. You want to keep now standard time. You want to keep this natural time. And the fact that he's trying to keep daylight savings is more, it's just more to the psychosis of how ridiculous this whole situation is. That one person who's come up with legislation and managed to push it, by the way, pushing it when nobody else could vote on it. That's the reason it got this far. And the one thing he's trying to do is the exact opposite of what he should be trying to do. He just wants the kids to be in darkness forever. Or again, what is it? It's like for the Sunshine State. Maybe it'll help out Florida, because more people will come to Florida because they'll have more light or something. I don't know. There's got to be a corporatism type catch about why he's choosing to do the one thing that no one would ever recommend doing. Anyway, so sick of it.
Yeah, I wish we could stop this. And I've said it before, it's voluntary jet lag. I don't understand why we're doing this to ourselves.
Exactly. And it's horrible if you have
folks
children
who haven't traveled to a different time zone, or to Europe or anything. If you ever wondered what jet lag feels like, it's like this.
Yeah.
For no reason.
It takes time to get over it. And the thing is, it sucks for the kids. Let's bring it back to the kids. Let's use the kids. You know, they can't adapt, so they just end up waking up an hour earlier and wanting to go to bed an hour
earlier. They do their thing normally, and they didn't get the memo. Kids don't get the memo.
They don't get the memo. There you go. The writing's not on the wall for them. They're living their own life. They're living the old life, and we've arbitrarily moved them into a new life, and they don't understand what's happening. They don't understand why we're grumpy, because they're getting us up 1 hour earlier than when they had been getting us throughout the entire summer or and spring. It's horrible. I'm so sick of it. I have to rant. I will rant every single time we switch over until somebody out there crafts a bill. Get me a bill. Get me legislation, because I can't imagine anybody who would fight to continue this switching around. Who is it? What state gave it up? Arizona? I think Arizona doesn't do it anymore. I think it's them.
And I think there are a few in the Caribbean, other countries that
there are a few countries,
it.
yeah. But I wanted to pick something close to home as like a litmus test to sanity. There is one state, may not be sane in all aspects, but they have chosen to stop this. That's what we should call it. Voluntary jet lag might actually have legs as a campaign slogan. Stop voluntary jet lag. Stop the jet lag. And daylight savings time.
Yeah, I wonder if a listener is familiar with drafting bills, or maybe we could start a petition. I mean, there has to be a petition. So are petitions just bogus? Because that's something that everyone would sign up for.
There's tons of petitions. Yeah, no, I think there's a petition.
So they're meaningless then, right?
They're meaningless. Yeah. Well, no, that's not true, because I think technically if a petition gets to a certain threshold of signatures, it has to be like discussed on some committee, like some level of our congressional system. I do believe that that is true, but for how long, I don't know. Can it be 30 seconds? Can it be a minute?
Do people have to stay? Is that when everyone takes a bathroom break?
Exactly. Just like how little Rubio got this through, he in a bathroom break. No one had come to the session, so it's same thing. Yeah, that's probably what goes on. I can't believe we're still doing it. It is 2022, and we have a litany of data to suggest that this is terrible for the psyche, terrible for for the body. It's terrible all around to continue to fluctuate our time zone by this hour mark in the winter and summer. It's awful. Okay, we know it. All science says that it is bad, and yet not one piece of legislation has been drafted in the. We basically know it's bad since probably the 70s. Since the 70s, not one piece of legislation has come in to say we need to abolish it federally and just be done with it. And the fact that other countries still do it, shame on them too. I will give that to the fact that there are European countries that are still doing it. I don't know what your problem is.
This is not a uniquely American problem.
It is not. But I do believe as Americans, maybe we could be unique and solve it. How about that? Why don't we try to do that?
Should we save the world?
How about
save the world?
How about we embrace a little bit of that American exceptionalism and do something that might be worthwhile to
and
most
bring
people.
back the sun.
I'm telling you, whatever party abolishes daylight savings, they will definitely get some grace going into the next election cycle. It is an easy way. I mean, I'm happy. Go after student loans. Sure, I mean it's $1 trillion debt and drag on the economy, no doubt about it. But if you had just passed, if they had just gone with daylight savings time, I'm telling you right now, that's probably not be shaking so much going. Into the midterms.
What do you think if Biden was to abolish daylight savings time? What do you think the GOP spin would be to turn that into negative?
I don't know enough about it. I don't know. It has to be from a corporate angle, because that's the only thing that I could believe is stopping someone from coming up with the legislation and garnering support. Because by all logical testimony, it only makes sense to abolish it. So the only thing I can think of in our great system, the way our system works, is there has to be some corporate some linchpin, something that is helpful to corporations in some capacity, some corporation somewhere that needs daylight savings time, or at least finds it helpful to their business model. That's the only reason. Or maybe our system really is just that apathetic and just that useless, because I can't imagine anything else. In fact, well, the idea, I think the only thing stopping Rubio's legislation is the fact that everyone's like, well, any specialist on the subject is saying, do not do that. That is not the right way to do. Yeah, you've done it the wrong way. But the thing is, no one's coming back and saying, hey, look, he did it the wrong way. Let's campaign on doing it the right way. Instead, it's just
change it. Why couldn't he just change it the right way? You keep all the same language. The language can't be vastly different.
Oh, yeah,
it's just you screwed up a word or two. Just switch it.
I honestly, I mean, I think a lot of the detractors are saying that it would help out the state of Florida to have permanent daylight savings. I guess so. It would be horrible. I think they showed the map. In fact, I think I talked about it when we did the episode on daylight savings. What was it, last year's daylight savings, where I showed you that map of how basically the middle of the country is going to be forever in darkness. They'll never see light under a permanent daylight savings. It's like there's like a sliver of like Michigan, like that Idaho, like that corridor that will basically be in darkness for the majority of their days during the winter.
Is that how it would be, or do they just change their working hours?
They could. Well, I mean, they could change their working hours, but then now they're off the rest of the country. I mean, like you wouldn't want to. I mean, how is that helpful?
Well, we're off anyway. We have different time zones.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying it would further impede that offness. I mean, it would be more jarring to then add in. Not only are you,
I don't know. I don't know how it works. I'm having a hard time conceptualizing how the center of the country.
They would. No, people said that. People said that if you did do this, then the schools, because everyone really addresses the school situation, the schools would have to start later and end later.
Oh, and that would force people to talk about childcare?
I mean, it's a knock-on effect at that point, right? Exactly. I don't know how far that rabbit hole goes, but it goes deep. Because you've got all these knock-on effects when you have to do something like that.
Maybe you can present. Maybe you can do a PowerPoint presentation
I don't need
on.
to. The New York Times, everyone's written about it. All I have to do
Well,
is
you
cut and
basically just
paste.
answered it yourself. A portion of the population would be disparaged, so you can't do it. I mean, you kind of
To
just
go to yeah, in Rubio's. That I'm talking about Rubio's scenario, which is permanent daylight savings time. That's what would happen in his
oh.
scenario, not normal.
So normal scenario, people it would be normal for everyone.
It would be gradual. Yes, some places would spend a little bit more time. I mean, no, yeah, they would spend the exact same amount of time in darkness that they are currently about to spend in darkness because this is the normal time. This is it. We're in normal time now. So yeah, it would make no difference.
Let's try it out. Can't we just as a country just test it out? I mean,
Can we
is that
test
a
out
bad thing?
anything?
Like
Can we test out anything?
can we just do it for a year?
That'd be great.
Is that a thing? Do countries do that? Do countries just like test drive something for a year?
I think that. I mean, look, all governments know
Like put
that.
it on put it on there and say we're going to do it for a year, and then you have to vote to renew it.
I would love it. I would love it. At least I know that there would be a campaign and there would be a lot of back and forth and a lot of good discourse, optimistically. The debate on debates over daylight savings time. It would be and people will be running on it, I guess, if people don't enjoy it. I think it's always one of those things where if they did abolish it even for a year, I just can't imagine anyone wanting to go back. I think that and people are very, people get into the groove. No one's gonna if you stop switching. I don't think there's gonna be any Tom, Dick, or Harry out there that's gonna be like, you know what I want to do? I want to disrupt my life again. I think I mean it's never gonna come back. If they stop it would never come back.
I'm too well rested.
Yeah, it would never come back. In the 70s, they did do, which we talked about. They did do permanent daylight savings, and it ended up being really rough on the kids. It ended up like kids were getting hit by various vehicles out in rural America, having to go to school in pitch dark. But it's 2022. I mean, we could talk about the ruralness of America. I mean, we could get lights out there. Like we could get drones to just go back and forth on the country lanes and light those babies up. I mean, it's not 1972 or 75. We the fact that we keep using that as our look what happened back then. And again, I'm not for daylight savings. I don't want to keep it permanently, but the fact that we are using it to say, what about the children walking down the street? I'm like, we have we need to get electricity. I think the bigger issue is why isn't there electricity out on those streets?
Why isn't rural America electrified yet?
Why can we get a grid out there? I mean, I feel like daylight savings is not the problem. We need grids out there. We need to get some energy out those people so that their kids aren't walking in pitch darkness, or at least get them some proper sidewalks so they're not getting hit by hay bales and whatnot out there. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, is busing not a thing? I took a bus to school.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for the ruralness, but it probably would be not as feasible to have a single bus driver. First of all, it could take 2 hours to get everyone to school at that point if you're going to pick them up in a bus, Because, I mean, it depends on how far.
Get a couple buses.
That are going to be filled with, 3 kids each? I mean, that's not tenable.
Little shuttles.
Automated
little
auto,
driver,
driverless. Yeah, what a good test. Driverless cars that pick the kids up. That's a good solution. So you're not talking about little Jimmy walking out with what? I mean, the Huck Finn sack? He's got like a stick with a little wrapped cloth thing for his bags and books. I mean, what do we got going on out there? I don't know what they're called. I don't know, but I'm just saying exactly like why do we conjure up these images of this like bygone era of America whenever we talk about America? We go back to this salt of the earth, kids walking miles in the snow. Yeah, we should get some autonomous vehicles out there to be picking up these kids so that they could get to school safely without having to walk at this point.
We did an episode on that, so they were testing it out in Jersey. A bindle is what it's called.
They tested it out in rural Australia too. So there are places we can look to say, hey, it's been done. But anyway, that's my rant. I rant because it angers me, it vexes me, it beats me down to the core. I am so sick of having to do it. And I don't understand why year after year, not one single elected official stands up and says, some good JFK crap, that it's like, not, I mean, for some reason, all I'm thinking of is what was his words for the, why do we do it? Not because
Not
it's easy,
because
but
it's
because
hard.
it's hard,
Yeah.
right?
Except this isn't that hard.
No, no, we're not sending people to the moon,
It
people.
just seems like some paperwork.
We just want you to stop. We just want to stop doing
Stop
something.
doing
Just stop
next
it.
next time we do this, next time we correct, stop.
Just stop.
Just stop.
Just don't do it. Don't change. Just leave it as it is. That's what's so funny. We're not even asking anyone to do anything. We're saying, Apple, just don't update. Don't push the clock forward on your phone. Just leave it as it is. Just don't touch it. Don't touch anything. Let it go. See how people like it for a year. See how that goes.
It's an odd artificial timing that we've put ourselves on.
Yeah.
It's not natural.
Oh, not at all. Not at all. Anyway.
All right. Well, I'm sure they're listening.
So I hate daylight savings. There's my next little thing. There's my next.
There's a few politicians that listen to us, so hopefully they're taking notes and they take it to the floor.
Yeah. I don't know why it doesn't bother as many people as it bothers me. I just can't. It's all encompassing. You wake up and you're not waking up when you used to wake up. I'm not waking up when I used to wake up a week ago. Why does that bother anybody?
I mean, I think it doesn't bother people because they're conditioned and they just take it for granted. They just assume that it's for a right reason. It's always been that way. They don't really think about it. And it's only when you have time, when you're a person of leisure, when you can just like sit around and think.
When you work from home and you're more acutely, well, no, even if you commute,
when you have the free time, Antoine, must be nice to just think about the world's woes and how to solve them, where you're like, why am I tired right now? Why do I feel discomfort?
You know what's so ridiculous about that? It's what I feel the most is when I have to commute to work. So it's in the getting up to commute to work that it is the most oppressive. In fact, it is the people of leisure that are probably the least oppressed, and they're probably the ones who are blocking the legislation because they don't see the big deal. They're like, why waste our time on it? I wake up and I go about my day without having, I check my stocks. I'm a capitalist, so the money just comes to me. I check on my properties and I make sure the checks are in my account and I go about my life. I don't know. I'm just saying, for the people who have to get up and actually get to work in pitch blackness without just out of the blue, I feel like those people understand where I'm coming from.
Get the word out.
Start
a movement.
I would start a party around this.
End the movement.
Yeah.
That's what the slogan should be. End the movement. Stop moving ahead, or whatever it is.
Oh, I get what you're saying in terms of moving ahead. Yeah. Go back. Yeah. I like the voluntary jet lag. Anyway,
Back to the Future.
You had something. What do you?
Yeah.
What's getting your goat these days?
All right. Here's a tale of the high seas. 2/3 of the ocean belongs to no one. And that can cause disagreements among the global community over how to work together. And whether it's creating protected areas or enforcing industry rules, it seems the world cannot find common ground. Or should I say common water?
Okay. But
these agreements are important to maintain a healthy, viable oceanic resource that we all depend on. So what gives? I will be honest, I could not have guessed the reason as to why those deals fell through. The deals on enforcing industry rules and creating protected areas in international water. Do you have any idea why the global community could not come together on those?
I mean, it's old maritime rules. International water kind of has to exist so that you're not always going to war with one another, basically. You have to have an area.
I mean, they may have been minor roles, but there's one main issue.
Okay.
And apparently it comes down to one question that could not be answered. That question is, how can profits be shared from genetic resources in international waters? So marine plants and animal life form the basis of several drugs, including one you might be familiar with, remdesivir, the first approved COVID treatment. There's also an antifreeze protein that improves ice cream texture. I mean, the list goes on. In fact, since 1950, researchers have discovered 34,000 marine components with commercial potential. And it is this that they could not agree on. It was used as leverage to disrupt everything else.
So are you saying at some point in the modern era, countries came together to say, do we still need international waters? And the reason we couldn't get over the hump is because no one could figure out how to share the profits?
No, I'm
Is that what you're
saying
saying?
not that we don't need international waters, but should we create large swaths of protected ocean? And in terms of fishing and things like that, should we enforce and come up with rules that everyone has to agree on? And they said no. They agreed yes, they were there to do it,
Mm-hmm.
but there was one aspect of that, which was this genetic data that they could not agree on. I mean, the sequencing data for marine genomes is worth billions of dollars. Like the
So
numbers are crazy.
my question though is, in international water, you're saying that because there are no rules governing it, like anybody can mine it? Is that what's happening here?
No, so you're
I
going
guess
into
that's what I'm
different
getting
things. Yeah, you're
confusing.
not mining. I mean, there are rules for
That's
for
what
the
yeah,
international
there are.
waters,
Yeah.
but nothing for genome data.
Okay,
So
so is anyone currently gathering genome data from international water? The
yeah,
answer is they
yeah,
are.
yeah, billions of dollars worth. Yeah.
Okay, but then like how do you protect it? Like how does someone else not just show up and
Okay.
start taking it from you or something? Like what how does that work?
So sorry, let me get through this because I think you're
Okay.
asking questions, but there's a few ways to unravel that.
Yeah,
So
sure.
there are laws on the books today.
Okay.
Under the UN's law of the sea, nations have the right to profit from fisheries in international waters, but they must share the profits of minerals taken from the seabed with International Seabed Authority member states, sponsoring states, the ISA itself, and the company undertaking the mining. What's unclear is how that's split among all of those components, all those entities, and how that's even enforced. So there are rules in place today for fisheries. You can profit off that as a company or as a nation.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to mine the seabed, then you have to share that with everyone that's involved in terms of the UN or the ISA, I should say.
Okay.
And the reason is they said that belongs to the people. It is like there was some phrasing behind it, but it's basically that belongs to everyone because
So, are these governments doing it? Like, because you're sharing the profit. So even if you're a private corporation, you have to share the profit off of that. I see what you're saying. Okay,
yeah.
got it. So basically, it's taxation. There are levies for mining or pulling up genome or any kind of resources or minerals in international water. You
for minerals, yes. For fisheries, minerals, there are rules. For genome, like if you want to map out, if you find that you can create some type of product out of a sponge or a jellyfish or a sea slug or whatever it may be, piece of coral, there are no rules to say that you have to share those profits. It's really the companies or governments own them outright at this point. They can do whatever they want with them. And that kind of goes against everything because it's international waters. And so it's interesting. They say, here, I'll read this really quick.
Yeah, go for it.
For inspiration on marine law, the UN negotiators sought guidance from the UN's Nagoya Protocol that regulates genetic resources found on land and coastal waters. So there is precedent for land and coastal waters. It allows nations and companies to commercialize biodiversity as long as an annual levy is paid to the resource's rightful owners, like local communities or indigenous people. The issue, again, is that this is international waters. There are no rightful owners.
Right.
Or you can make the argument that it's owned by everyone. And I think that's the sticker there, is that you have some people saying there's no one's, so it's ours. And everyone's like, no, it's everyone's. And you need to share that with people. Historically, UN members such as the UK, European Union, and the US and Japan, which have the technology, money, and ability to scour the deep sea for new products, have argued for the right to patent and solely profit from marine genetic resources. Developing nations, including a group of African countries, have argued that profits, data, and other benefits derived from marine genetic resources should be shared among all nations.
Interesting.
So
I see. I'm beginning to see the conundrum. I could see it from the profit side. I could see it from the corporations that are, or the wealthy nations, because basically you named wealthy nations. So let's say the global north They're basically saying, well, we have all the money. We're putting our dollars on the line to get these products. So whatever the yield, whatever the positive that comes out of it, should be ours because we're the ones who are flipping the bill. And then on the converse side, you basically have the environmentalists who are saying, well, you may be flipping the bill, but the Earth is the one creating this resource. This is this resource, because it's the Earth's, it belongs to anyone who inhabits the Earth because it does not belong to any single sovereign nation. So you could flip the bill all you want, but if you're going to go digging, whatever you find belongs to us all. This is interesting. I mean, this is really interesting. Wow, what an interesting place of law. Actually, this would be a very the lawyers who are arguing this. This would be this is really I actually think it's saddening because it's like why are we even doing this? why it's like if you're finding cures to diseases by scouring the ocean floor, that should be the UN should be doing it. I feel like
well, they tried, right, and they can't agree. 168 countries could not agree.
Yeah, well, of course not, because why would you if you already have the money to do it on your own? Why would you share? Why would you agree?
And I think it goes back to your framing of global north versus global south. You can only do it because of past exploitations that put you in a position to do it.
I didn't go into that, but yeah.
But I mean, I think that's part of it. I think that if everything was equal and equitable, then you probably would be able to say, if you have the means and the desire, go out and do it, and it's yours. But because there is so much systemic inequity, I feel like you need something like this to counterbalance.
If you're putting it in there as sort of like a way to right wrongs, where you're saying, hey, maybe we should throw the world a bone and say that we've basically pillaged your countries in the past, made it almost impossible for you to attain the type of economic assurity that we in the global north happen to enjoy. We're throwing you a bone. We're not just going to return your relics that we've stolen and placed in our museums. We will also share with you these vital cures and medicines that we are discovering from the earth in these international waters. We will give them to you as well. I mean,
there's that, right? There's the moral argument of that, which doesn't really have legs. But then there is another argument to make, and that
it has legs. It's not appetizing. That's really what you want to say.
Well, I mean, have legs in law, in that I'm not aware of. Would they be reparations, right? I mean, that's kind of what.
Yes, essentially, yeah. In a sense, yeah. I mean, kind of. I mean, it'd be like codified in
on a global scale. I'm just not sure that it has. I'm not sure that that's a thing. Yeah. If there's past examples, I stand corrected. I hope it is, and that it is. It was, maybe. and it continues to be, but I'm just not aware of it. Yeah. But I think there's another aspect of this too, and the article touched on it lightly, but my mind started to wander, and that's if you start harvesting things. So it, like in the mining industry, it was clear, and I think that's what the article may have referenced, where you can have ecological disasters with mining on the seabed, and that is the world's ocean. 2/3 of the world is international, or 2/3 of the ocean. 2/3 of the ocean are international waters. Now, if you have a disaster there, it is going to impact countries, and if it impacts countries that cannot recover or adapt or get through it, cope like a richer nation, that's not really fair either. And if they have no say or no ability, not getting revenue, like there's no way to counter that. Now my head goes into, okay, now you're going after plant and animal life. Now, if this was to take off, if there's all of a sudden a gold rush on a particular thing, and maybe you have to destroy coral to get to it, and there's, again, no enforceable laws because there's no protected areas because they can never pass that bill because they couldn't agree on this. Like, you can see how that could have a cascading systemic impact on ecosystems on land and in coastal waters. Yeah. And poorer nations are not going to be able to counteract that. That's so correct. There's that part of it too, that if you're going to go do this and there's a potential risk to the world, then you should be sharing the profits with the world so that the world can protect itself.
Well, I mean, was that raised? Was that actually raised at the UN? Like, did anyone raise?
Oh, I don't know about
Yeah.
They didn't
I'm just
invite
saying
you.
it's interesting because that I would like to hear the counter argument to that argument, because that argument I feel has a lot. I mean, I feel like it has a lot of merit. I mean, I'm struggling to think of a counter narrative to that particular argument other than, again, the just sort of the more selfish, like, hey, again, right, we're flipping the bill, we do what we want kind of thing. It's like, I feel like, yeah, if you're living in a global society, it's kind of hard to say screw you guys. Uh, we're gonna do what we want in the open that way. I mean, I'm sure you could do it behind closed doors. You could do it you could do it in roundabout ways. But I'm struggling to find the yeah yeah. It'd be interesting. It'll be interesting to see if there is a counter to that particular argument.
So there were a lot of proposals being thrown around, and they were ultimately all rejected. And there was some that seemed centered around everyone contributing profits to a fund. But they all got dismissed because the funds were always disproportionately impacting developed nations that they couldn't be resolved. So they were just unfairly distributed. They weren't being utilized evenly or effectively across the board. So there was always a poorer nation saying, "This isn't right for us. You guys are screwing us over."
Yeah.
So they would all none of them would pass. Another complication, and this is kind of I forget what you brought up before, but this is the answer to that as
Okay.
well. Is that you don't need the physical specimen to obtain the genetic data. So if the data is uploaded to a repository, sold and resold again multiple times, it can be downloaded and used virtually by any lab anywhere in the world. And additionally, this data sequence information, or DSI, is currently unregulated and virtually impossible to trace its origins once it's been synthesized into a product or into a compound that's in a product, which makes profit sharing impossible because you could never prove how this came about. And then once it's out there, it's out there. Like, people can use it. It's like pirating something. It's not pirating in a sense because it's unregulated and you're not pirating something. But once it's out there and it can be shared and sold and you just have no control over it. So you don't need the sponge or the sea slug or whatever it is. Once you have the data, you're good to go.
Yeah.
There are some DSI systems in place. Brazil uses one that focuses on companies' compliance, rewarding them for reporting the use of genetic resources with an ethical biotrading certification. So, hey, if you do this thing that we want you to do, we'll give you a certification and you can market it and brand it and do whatever, and people could feel good about, associating them with your product. In exchange, the companies pay a 1% of their revenue into a fund, but that seems, you're just begging at that point for people to do it.
Yeah.
In theory, this could work for international waters, I guess, but it just, again, seems like an honor system, and the incentive would have to be worth it.
Those don't work with corporations because it's like, why pay 1% of your profits when you could just keep all your money? And then first of all, you're going to gauge, do people even care, or do people even know? This is such a niche topic. Like, is this really impacting your corporate branding? Let's say Pfizer is out there scouring the ocean floors, synthesizing whatever from God knows where in the ocean. Is that what makes people not buy your life-saving drug? Like, that's, you have to put it in the context. Am I gonna really? My doctor's like, well, you're gonna die in 3 months, but we have this drug from Pfizer. I'm like, Pfizer, are they bio-friendly? Are they bio-traded? Are they?
I heard they didn't take the government on that up on that 1% incentive.
I heard they screwed over this nation in the down in the global south. I'm gonna die before I take your drug. Thank you very much. I'm gonna die on my moral horse. They will put that on my gravestone. They will say, like, this man died by not taking the Pfizer drug because, and this, first of all, you have to have a lot of money to put this much wording on your gravestone, but because there we go, on a mausoleum, just right across the wall. This man died because he refused. He was a moral man. Here lies a moral man.
And it's funny,
refused life-saving drug.
It puts the onus back on the citizen, right?
Always.
It's all right. The government tried to guilt them. We tried to guilt them, but now it's on you.
Yeah.
Now it's
on you to make your choices. Yeah. Yeah. Let public opinion in the place where you have the least amount of power.
The UN couldn't figure it out, so unfortunately, you're going to have to make a moral decision here.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. It's
do you want to profit off of the company that could? Do you want to live?
Yeah.
With the help of a company that can give you that help, knowing that they're exploiting African nations. in the process.
Yeah. What a choice! What a powerful choice! I feel
do
so
the right thing.
I feel so
thing.
empowered. You know, I really feel like the government is giving me all the tools I
It's
have
like
to make the right decisions and control my life by doing this, because I could choose to just shame a corporation, because that's the most powerful thing, right? If we could shame a corporation into behaving at the expense of, I don't know, people's lives, you know, maybe that's the more powerful thing. I mean, why legislate? Why do your job as a government, or as the UN? Why make this decision as the elected people to do these decision make, as the people who are elected and put to make these hard choices? Why make a hard choice when you can offload that choice to the general population? Because I mean that makes more sense. I mean,
have them
it's like,
choose
whoa,
between their general well-being and their morality.
yeah, of course, that makes the most sense. It makes
Yeah.
it so logical.
Now, this did make me think. This is international water.
Yeah.
We talk about space all the time on the pod, and the balance or the relationship between governments, nations, and private enterprise, who owns what the rules are, whether it's colonization or mining asteroids or whatever it may be. Is this like
It's a precursor,
peek, right?
It's a
About
precursor.
that, right?
Yeah.
And so
We know that there's asteroid wars. All that metal, all that gold, all those raw materials. We know we got problems.
we can't
That
figure
is
out
where people
international
talk
waters.
about the corporate wars.
How are we going to deal with this if we can't figure out our international waters?
I mean, I think you raise a really good point, because it's going to come to space at some point. Once people figure out, once it's profitable enough to send whatever we need to mine asteroids and be able to capture them, and by we, I mean the couple of billionaires who are dabbling in that kind of space technology. Yeah, it's going to be hell to pay for the people on Earth, because once those resources end up being far more profitable, or more effective, I should say more effective than what we have here on our rock, that's when the stuff really is going to hit the fan. There's no doubt about that. And I don't know at that point how a government can come in and try to levy any kind of systematic legislation across that, because people are just going to want. They're gonna want the good stuff. You know, it's gonna, especially if it's cheaper, more efficient. If it's really hitting the bottom line and it's saving dollars in people's paychecks by being able to, I don't know, have a new form of a new electricity conductor or something. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a space engineer. I'm not an astronomer. I'm a guy. Once that happens, I mean, you're going to look real unpopular as a government trying to put the kibosh on it. So, yeah, that's all I have to say about that one, I think.
All right. Well, I thought it was interesting because, as you point out, I feel like this is one of those issues that doesn't get a lot of attention, doesn't really sit with the people to figure out.
No,
but
not at all.
without awareness, I don't know, maybe without conversation, maybe without a little bit of pressure, it's just going to continue to enrich the groups that it enriches. And
absolutely,
the world is going to miss out. I mean, who knows? Maybe this could fund UBIs with this windfall of money.
Look, we've seen it with COVID. You know, that's the thing. You know, we don't have to extrapolate and theorize on the implications of this. I mean, that this is the whole COVID argument. This is the government, because I mean, this is where our government went to war with many of the COVID manufacturers, saying that, hey, we gave you money to synthesize this drug. We gave you public dollars, and then we even sweetened the deal by agreeing to buy back from you a proportion of, give you a not the list price, but at a discounted rate. But so it's basically double dip, because we funded it, and then we agreed to buy it back from you with this fairness of this, neoliberal, socialism for corporations. It's like we're going to give you, we're going to figure out as many ways to give you money as possible, and then you go off and you're selling the drug top dollar to the global south, perpetuating the pandemic. You're not, we're trying to get this thing done, and the thing is going off, and it's mutating and becoming different variations in countries that can't afford your drugs. And we're like, you need to give these drugs to people. And the companies are like, I don't know what you're talking about. These gentlemen agreements, these handshakes you speak of.
New phone, who does?
Give me the writing. Give me the legislation that forces me to sell these drugs at a price that people can afford. I'm trying to make money. I don't know if you know this, because clearly you don't. I'm a corporation. I'm here for profit. You're
Also-
a government. You're here for the people. You made a bad deal. These are the beads.
Also, I'll see you at the annual stockholder meeting.
and you better not speak up about this because I know you need to run for re-election. So I'd pipe down if I were you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's the kind of contention that we constantly butt up against when we're talking about the overall societal goods, versus the way our system just happens to be laid out. And I'm using air quotes with "happens to," but yeah, it's just more of that. And you're right, it's going to keep getting worse, especially as we start exploring space in the future. It's going to be much worse.
There you have it, folks. What episode was this, Antoine?
This is episode 95 of Retraction. Where can they find us?
Folks, you can find us on Twitter at Retraction Media. Hit us up. Let us know your thoughts. Share your favorite episodes with your friends, family, anyone who likes science and politics. Or just send them the pod in general if you can't pick an episode. We have trouble doing that too. And rate us on your favorite podcasting platform.
And YouTube. Did you mention YouTube?
Are we going to do the announcement?
This is the announcement.
Folks,
you can find us on YouTube.
You can find us on YouTube. And we made it easy. It's at Retraction Media, same as Twitter. So, this is the big reveal, everyone. If you've been following us on Twitter, you've seen me dropping hints, big announcement soon. This is that announcement. So another avenue to watch us if you want to get more than just to listen. And comment on there too and let us know how we're doing.
Yeah, we definitely want to engage with you on YouTube. I'm a big YouTube fan, people. So yeah, hoping that kicks off.
Antoine wants to see you there.
I really do. And with that, Retraction out.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. We can sit together. It's so beautiful.